What's going on, guys? And today, my video topic today will be four teams that top teams that need a top five pick in this year's 2020 draft, or just who are the top teams? Who are the top teams that really need a franchise changing draft pick? Who these are the top these are the top teams that would benefit most if they got a changing a top 5 pick. And I mean, obviously, especially in most drafts after the first two, you're gonna have a few years. Maybe they won't be changing, but they could. And of course, there's all these steals that become really good. But a top five, a top five pick for any of these teams this year would really There's teams that really need picks. And the first team that I really think would 100% benefit from a lottery pick to get the top pick potential. Doesn't have to be the top one. Doesn't have to be the second one. But again, a top one, absolutely. Getting the top one would be great. But if any of these teams got a top 5 pick, it still will be amazing for these teams, because basically all these teams are in a rebuilding mode. But one of these teams still doesn't believe that they need to rebuild, but they do. And first team, first team that I think should get, definitely, the first team that I think definitely needs, and again, the rebuilding, the retooling, they're having an up and down season. They're playing better than I thought they would. And this is a team in the West. A team that really needs, and they need to get younger, and they are, is the LA Kings. The LA Kings are getting younger, but they're still too old, which is a problem for LA. You just can't play, their style of game does not work in today's game. You can have those toughness guys and stuff, but you really can't have a team like LA in this game anymore. And again, not every team can play that way, and you can't make the playoffs like that. You can't win like this. And plus, their defense was good in 2012, 2014, and all those years they won and stuff. But the other thing is, Quick's career isn't going well. They have two young, solid goalies. They have some guys, they have pieces on this team. They're pretty good, but most of their they have young pieces. They have good, and again, they have good young prospects. The system, the good thing is they know they're bad though. That's why they know they're bad. And again, if you're gonna be bad, because because if you don't know you're bad, it's gonna go really bad. And if you rebuild, like at the trade deadline in 2019 was when LA decided, yep, we aren't good. So they traded Muzzin away, but they got a first rounder and two damn solid prospects from Toronto. So again, my opinion, that was one of the few trades that's actually fair, for both teams. Very solid for both teams. LA could easily win that trade in the future, but right now, obviously they don't win because again it's too soon to tell. But I think LA looks like LA got a damn good deal. Yeah, what would LA benefit from? What? Oh, best case scenario, they win the lottery, and they get, because getting a lottery pick, because especially, and again, I'm not a I'm not a junior college, whatever it is. I'm not a junior expert. I'm not a prospect expert. But all the scouts and all the reports about the scouts saying this top, like, especially the top 10, like, or hell, going to the top 5, they say these players are stacked. Like, this, like, and they were saying, like, 2018 was supposed to be really stacked, which it was, and it looks like a lot of those players are pretty good. 2017 wasn't as weak as everybody said. 2019 was supposed to be a bit weak, but also supposed to be pretty strong. Not like, but 2020, apparently 2020 is supposed to be the deepest since 2015, which, in 2015, and honestly, at the time it was hyped to be the best since '03, which arguably it was. It was the best since '03. And some, yeah, there were busts in the first round, but almost every first rounder has become a good NHLer. But again, 20. So again, for LA, if 20, if especially top 5, if the 2020 can become NHLers, like not the first year, but I mean, the top 3 if they're NHLers, that's good. But again, and again, you're not, and again, you're not automatically gonna become amazing, but you can, but especially a few years, you could help a team significantly if you get. Of course, LA still needs. Of course, LA still needs a trade players and get more prospects or more draft picks for the draft because they're not a really good team, but like at times they're decent. But again, when you're bad, you better know you're bad because you don't want to start rebuilding too late because then it's like, wow, you're just wasting seasons and wasting seasons, and it's just stupid. And I mean, team, a team like Buffalo and Edmonton and all these teams, some like a lot, like there's teams that are poorly run, and like in my lifetime especially, there's been teams that didn't know they were bad, and then once they start rebuilding, it, they kept acquiring players at the deadline, and they kept giving up prospects, and then they're rebuilding, and it's like they're gonna really have to go through a 5-year rebuild. LA, LA is not. It's not too little, too late. It's not, and they started the deadline, and they're continuing to rebuild. They got McClellan. He knew in his press conference they weren't going to be good. He knew it, and he said this is a development year and it's a growing year, and that's what it is. It's a growing year for the young players, and again they have pieces like Quick could. I mean, Quick's value is not good right now, and again, there's a lot of veterans they could trade, but there's a player that they might have to trade, but they might not because he's been a legend in LA for years. But there's a player that they could absolutely trade. Maybe not a player, but maybe not get a player, but they could get like they could get a really good prospect or a couple really good draft picks for Anze Kopitar. In my opinion, that might be a guy they could potentially trade, but I'm not sure if they do it. But again, they are a rebuilding team, and obviously, they need a lottery pick, in my opinion, because they're not good, they're bad, and they have they have young goal, like, and again, they're always good at getting goalies. Like, honestly, LA, out of their system, they got Quick, which I don't know if he'll be a Hall of Famer. I don't know if he'll be a Hall of Famer, but when he was on, he was easily top 5 in the world. So, but they've had many guys, but I mean, yeah, they got to rebuild, and that's the first team. And I'm gonna make it shorter for the other teams, but I had to talk about I meant about the draft. The draft is supposed to be pretty good, and for these teams. And again, I'm also talking about how I know there's teams that think they're good, but then once they start rebuilding, when they find out they're bad, it's too little, too late. So this next, and there's only one team on here that still thinks they're good. There's only one, and if you guess it, uh, I mean, it's not too hard to guess, but again, I'm gonna do something special, I guess, if you got it right before. But the next team's Ottawa, which knows they're bad, and because that's why, like, you don't trade all these guys out and think you're bad, but because really, since that game 7, it has been nothing but hell in Ottawa and Mel. And again, one of the reasons is Melnick. I hate that man so much, but again, God, and again, that's why Pierre Dorian, you gotta give credit to this guy handling dealing with all this stuff, and making these moves, making these moves with Melnick there. Props to Dorian, and honestly, the Carlson trade is not good. That was a move he didn't do good. So now, if Brandstrom pans out to be a star player, it could be a decent deal, but still not like if Stone was a rental, then a star player over a rental would be good. But an 8-year deal for Stone, Vegas. Right now, it's a robbery because Stone is he's easily for me, okay, I won't say easily, but he's arguably top 20, top 15 player in the world right now. He's in my top 20 players in the league. There's many people that don't, but getting off topic here, but he's a player that, if Brandstrom was an Erik Karlsson type defenseman, okay, that's a good trade. But if he's just Shabbat is still not a superstar, but he's still young. He could easily, I'm not saying he could be Erik Karlsson, but he's becoming a superstar, especially if he's on a good team. That guy can be disgusting and win a Norris one day. Brandstrom is the other piece. And again, under DJ Smith, which again, like Todd McClung, there's a real, I'm not saying these coaches are just growing coaches and then they get another coach, but both teams decided they got a new coach, and they knew they were going to be bad. And Ottawa, they've been way better than LA. They've actually been pretty good. They're on a bit of a losing streak now, but they were winning. And they win by basically hard work. And Pajot is going to be a free agent. They got to, if they don't re-sign Pajot, and even if they get a lottery pick, it's not guaranteed he can play. And if they don't re-sign Pajot, their center depth is going to be, it's already bad. Pajot, he's been amazing. By far the best he's ever played in his career. He's usually a third or fourth line center. Usually fourth line center, but, could be second line center on bad teams too. But, this guy is their best center right now, arguably. And they still have pretty good prospects in the minors as well. Nilsson has obviously been fantastic this season, and as a stat, people say, well, he's not a starter yet, it's just because of Ottawa, but he's been fantastic for a team that's supposed to suck, which again, they're not in a playoff spot or anything. But they've been good. And he's took an Anderson spot because he is an old goalie now. He is not as good as he used to be. I'll tell you that. But again, Anderson had way better teams in Ottawa before this happened, man. But I'll tell you, they really need a big they really need a lottery pick. Ottawa desperately could use another and especially if they get if they like if they really like crumble, crumble at the end of the season, they will probably in a position. They will probably be in a good position. Now, the Duchesne trade turned into a disaster for Dorian, but I respect trying to be competitive. But after that, they again that was like I guess they were starting to play bad before that trade, but it just feels like that was the turning point. And again, Ottawa practically like 2018 was a full on disaster for Ottawa. Well, 2017, 18, but 20 like 2017 like 2017 18 might have like seriously that might have still been the biggest like that was just it was the disaster. Like it really just was a disaster and it's a disaster and as Dorian said, the worst is behind us, which I hope. And the way DJ Smith has made this team play, it looks like the worst is behind the Senators, which is good. So again, change. And again, they have some good young players in Brady Tkachuk. Now, Brandstrom's been decent as an NHLer this season. He has a lot of learning to, but is gonna be. I think he will be a damn good defenseman for years to come. But again, Brandstrom becoming the superstar he's supposed to be is not 100% official. But again, I mean, is an NH like. Well, he's been decent this season. Like, he's been decent. Yeah. He hasn't, like, and again, it takes time for defensemen. So again, guys like Makar and Hughes are just insane because it takes a long time. Not as long as goalies. Like, goalies, what? And again, guys like Carter Hart, again, also define that. It's like, but goalies, yes, they take years to develop, but defensemen take years to develop. And by Brandstrom's third year, I think that will be the year he probably becomes maybe a star. Next year, he might have a coming out party, then the next year breakout, then star, then maybe in 5 years superstar. That's probably, again, if he becomes what he could, like, is projected to be. That's what I see. Because, again, it just doesn't all suddenly become. So, Ottawa, and they know they suck, and they're rebuilding clearly with DJ Smith actually at least making them work every night. It's not like you're getting blown out every night and you're just a disaster. They know they're bad, and they have good prospects in their system, which is a great thing for Ottawa. They have a good future, but they suck. Well, yeah. They suck. Like Ottawa's not a good team. And again, they were playing well, but I still think Ottawa is not a good team, like, at all. So, moving on to the next team is a team that doesn't know they're bad. And this is a team that's actually playing well right now, which, again, I know this team, like, I like this team. I like this team in the Minnesota Wild. Let's just say it. The Minnesota Wild, I like them. I like I have rankings and they're in like a team that I do really want to do well every year, but the problem for the Minnesota Wild is they're never bad enough to get a good pick, and they're either, like 2019, like the first time they missed the playoffs since, like, in 2019, the Wild missed the playoffs for the first time since 2012, I believe. So it was a good run for making the playoffs year after year. But the problem is there are a few years that they did have the Hawks in the playoffs. 2013, 2014, and 2015 were exceptions where they were at least, good teams. They just lost to one of the best teams every year, but then 2016, 2017, and 2018, they didn't lose to teams that were like the Jets in 28 like the 2018 Jets. Okay, the Jets in 2018 were a damn good team, but still, they lost in 5 games. They didn't beat Vegas at all. They lost to Vegas in 5. So I just, well, in 2019 they missed the playoffs. 2019 they missed the playoffs. So they they are a team that just underachieves every year, and they're way too old. Like they need to rebuild. They don't think they do. And they got Rask, which again Rask for need to ride. Apparently, their GM that just got fired, their GM that just got fired didn't scout Rask at all. So that's just embarrassing. Honestly, he makes $4 million, and again, I don't know why. Like, I seriously don't know why a guy like Rask makes $4 million a year. That's weird. I mean, there's contracts that are bad. He is the most under the radar overpaid contract in the NHL because that is way too much for a guy that doesn't do much at all. Really, really, he doesn't do much on the ice. So that Carolina trade just was amazing. But they made it featured. But and again, last year at the deadline, they traded Gremlin, and they got a guy that's decent, but not Gremlin. He's not. He's not. It was. Um. Right now, it's the guy from Nashville that came. Fiala. That was a very again decent trade for Minnesota, but again they don't win it because Gremlin's better. And again they made in like at the deadline in 20 like Minnesota because again and Minnesota's trades are usually awful too. So they made 2 good trades last year at the deadline. Fiala, like again, they don't win that trade. And right now it also looks like they do lose the Donato trade. But when he came like I thought Coyle was, he was playing well, but again, he's played decently this year. He was struggling this out. But Donato dominated out of the gate last year, struggling this year. I still think long term that's a win for Minnesota. I believe, in my opinion, I should build around Donato. Fiala obviously should be a core guy. He's a top 6 forward, in my opinion. There's a lot of guys that they should build around Dumba. I still believe Dumba's not old enough that you have to trade that guy, and he only makes $5 million. That's a guy you should also build around in maybe this only retool. But if they really if they got into at least the top 10, that would really benefit the Wild if this 2020 draft really looks like the draft or sounds like the draft sounds like the draft they're talking about all the time because it really it really will benefit the team. Like this team really needs something, and like how many high picks? Like this team has not had enough high picks. They never they really, and again they need to get younger, and again they don't know they're bad, which this is why I'm frustrated because they're they need to know they're bad. They need to know they're bad because they're not good. They're not good, and they think they're good. And if they miss the playoffs, though, Bruce Boudreau's 100 Bruce Boudreau. I thought he was going to be fired, but they said, well, because and again they fired their I'm not sure. I don't know how much trades Bill Guerin has made so far. I don't know how much. I don't know how Bill Guerin is a GM. I don't know how he is. I don't know how he is, but he was hiring, which is probably better than he's a better option than other options that could Chuck and again Parise and Suter they've had great careers, but those contracts that were signed in 2013 were abysmal, and everybody can agree you can't trade Suter, which I always want them or want them to trade Suter, but it can't be done. I've always wanted them to trade Suter because you can no, because there's guys that you can dump so much cap on, but you can't trade them, and that's the problem. Minnesota, because honestly, Minnesota's screwed with all these, like, not just because they don't know they're bad and they're old. They have crappy contracts all over this team. There's not just the Edmonton Oilers or, you know, what other teams have, like, Detroit knows. They're supposed to be bad, and they have, again, they they are a team, unlike the other ones, where they get blown out practically every night and suck and have like I don't think they have the worst goaltending in the world, but really, goaltending has not been good enough. And again, what else does anybody think is not good enough? It's clearly they don't have a defense. Obviously, they just suck at anything at that area of the game. They again, they honestly have a pretty good for like, especially like they have honestly a top 20 sniper in the game in Mantha, which is hurt too. So again, without him, they don't have much. I mean, Larkin still has potential to be a superstar. He's a star in this league, in my opinion. Nothing like a superstar Eichel type player because he has that potential. But again, with a Wings team like this, he ain't being a superstar player at all. And they have like Athanasiou, also a pretty good player. Then you have Bertuzzi. It's pretty good. You have a couple pieces, but really that's it. You don't have much other pieces. They're pretty good. Philip Dzina could be a good player. And then, Joe Veleno, still a good prospect. Then you got Seider, which was a shocking pick, but Yzerman believes him. And again, Yzerman is not dumb. He knows they're bad, and Yzerman knows they're bad, and Yzerman knows they're bad. Like Blashill's pretty much not going to get fired because they know they're bad, and that's good. They know they're bad, and Yzerman, Yzerman built the Lightning. He fired Boucher after 3 years because and again, he knew they were supposed to improve by 2013. The Lightning were supposed to be good. He fired him. He knew maybe we're still rebuilding, but we have to get better. Got John Cooper from the AHL, made the playoffs, but got swept. But again, it was a year that they had to start getting good, and they had a really good season. Again, after this season, I can 100% see Blashill get fired. But really, not many moves. A top pick benefits this team 100%, but the way this team is, they're not a good team. Again, they have some good players, but they're an awful hockey team, and that's the difference. They don't have a good team. They have no defense. They don't have a starter. Like Howard, he's too inconsistent. Bernier is not a starter. We know that, but he's a decent backup. They don't have a starter and no defense, but at least they know they're bad. So that's all for this one. I'll see you in the next video.